Good morning, everyone. My name is Paige Hovling, and I'm the Government Relations and Communications Advisor here at NSAR. I wanted to thank you for joining us this morning for the first session in our first ever virtual stakeholder forum. Before we like to begin, we would like to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We also want to acknowledge the significant foundations that Black and African Nova Scotian communities have played in building our province and our country. In August, Develop Nova Scotia announced an ambitious new project to bring high-speed internet to 97% of Nova Scotian communities by the summer of 2022. Today, Deborah Page, Director of Marketing and Communications with Develop Nova Scotia, is here to talk about those projects. Deborah joined Develop Nova Scotia in 2017, bringing 30 years of complex organizational and project management in the areas of marketing, public relations, advocacy, and issues management, as well as stakeholder and government relations to her team. Known for her creative, proactive, and innovative approach, Deborah is a true relationship builder. She holds a Bachelor of Public Relations from Mount St. Vincent. Through her community involvement, she has worked to strengthen partnerships and create opportunities with organizations such as Queen Pins and the Homebridge Youth Society. Deborah will take questions following the presentation. So now, please join me in welcoming Deborah Page.
Thanks very much, Paige. It's a pleasure to be here. I think this is the third year that I've addressed the group, and I'm more than happy to be here and talk a little bit about the progress that we've achieved to date, but also where we are right now and what we're focused on and concentrating on, because I think the main message that we'd like to get across to everyone right now is that we are not done yet, and our work continues. But we're quite pleased with where we've gotten so far. And now it's just a matter of continuing on and pushing further into across Nova Scotia and into communities that remain uncovered. So let me start off by giving you a little bit of information about the organization itself. Just as a reminder, Develop Nova Scotia, we are a provincial crown corporation, and our vision is really simple. It's to create a Nova Scotia that's irresistible to people and investment. We do that through what we call placemaking, which is a really fancy word for saying we're making places that people love and that actually attract people to come to Nova Scotia to live and to work and to start businesses, to invest, to raise families, and to thrive. Really, we see that being critical moving forward, and especially as we see the world and the work world changing in ways that maybe we didn't think we're going to be that way, maybe just a few short months ago, basically due to COVID. So we're focused in three different areas. We're focused on thriving communities. So really, that is very much where the Internet for Nova Scotia initiative lives, but enabling global connectedness and accessibility across Nova Scotia. We're also focused on building placemaking capacity in community, enabling locally led social and economic infrastructure projects. We're also focused on authentic destinations. So really building tourism destinations, but building them for locals first. And focus on year-round operations as well, and really providing new places for community to gather and tourism businesses to start up and grow. And we're looking forward to tourism coming back very soon, and growing, and in fact are taking advantage of that of the downtime to do a lot of investment across the province, which I'm happy to talk about as well. We're also focused on working waterfronts, which is where our expertise and our experience lies in owning and operating the Halifax and Lunenburg waterfronts. But we see that working waterfronts, they do support, they are economic infrastructure basically for us, because we are an ocean focused community, an ocean-focused province. And we're really looking at how do we develop multi-purpose public marine infrastructure that supports multiple sector growth as well as individual users from the public, and eventually visitors when it's safe to do so. So that's kind of where we focus our work. And let's talk a little bit about our Internet for Nova Scotia initiative. I always review these just to make sure that everybody is on the same page in terms of how we came into this initiative and how we started. And so we started through an approach that looked at being successful in reaching at least and more than, we're always confident we could get more than 95% of Nova Scotia homes and businesses. As Paige mentioned, we're well on our way and well on track to do that, and we're not stopping. So we have always been very, very confident that we could get more than 95%, and indeed, that's what the results are showing us. We have also always been focused on outcomes and not on the technology used. We've asked the marketplace as we go out and ask for projects to take a look at, for them to suggest to us what technology will get us to the kind of outcomes that we're looking for. And that allows for service providers to suggest new and upcoming technologies, and also to invest in technologies that are going to allow them to grow that network over time. We set minimum speed targets for our service, and we set those in conjunction with what's being set across Canada and through the CRTC, so the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Commission, who regulates the telecom industry, and they've set minimum speed targets of 50 megabits per second down and 10 megabits per second up on a wired service. So when I talk about wired, that's wired to the home, so fiber to the home or a coax cable right to the home, and also 25 megabits per second up and 5 megabits per second down on a wireless signal. And when I say wireless, that could be a couple of different things. That could be a signal off a tower. So the tower is fiber fed usually, and then there's a signal that goes off to the tower right to the home. Or it could be satellite. And so the satellite and fixed wireless technologies must meet to begin at least a 25.5, but they also have to show us how they're going to get from 25.5 to 50.10 within a specified time period. And the last time we went out with a tender, we asked them to show us how they were going to get there in 4 years, actually. So we're really pushing to get to that minimum target speed so that we can create that baseline technology across the province. And certainly worth noting that the vast majority of the projects that we've approved to date have speeds well in excess of the minimum speed targets. So we're quite pleased with how far we've been able to get with fairly robust services, and those that are actually exceeding our speed targets. We're also holding ISPs accountable, internet service providers, accountable to deliver reliable service over time. This was something we heard across the province when we were talking with folks about concerns and issues that they wanted to see us address in the initiative. And so what we've done is we looked across Canada to see what others were doing, different examples and so on. We took those, we brought them back, and we had more work done to them by legal expertise that had telecommunications and experience put to bear on it. And what we believe we have are some very robust and strong service level agreements. So with every internet service provider that has an approved project moving forward, we sign with them a contribution agreement, which allows us to oversee the installation of the network and the technology and make sure that that's done in accordance with what they've proposed and what they've promised, that it's done appropriately and that it's done on time. That contribution agreement, once that ends, is when their service kicks in and they start providing service to customers. That's when the service level agreement kicks in, and we hold that with each of the internet service providers for 10 years. Those are designed so that we can actually monitor the types of services and the types of outcomes that they've promised in their proposal. So if a service provider promises 100 megabits per second download, that's going to be their speed, then that is the speed that's expected for them to deliver. And we will measure them, and we will not measure them at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're going to measure them at busy time, which by research across Canada has been determined to be between 7:30 and 11. So we'll be actually measuring them at a time period where most of the activity is happening. So people are doing their homework and they're checking their internet and they're downloading Netflix and they're accessing services. That's when we're going to test, and we'll do that over time to make sure that they are actually delivering what they say they're going to deliver. In addition to that, we're testing for other things. So we're testing for other technology issues like jitter and packet loss. Those are the kinds of things that can sometimes impact when you're on a Zoom call and you start to get the feed coming in and out. The other things that we're going to measure are things like downtime. So downtime for the network, if there's a network issue, We know that sometimes that kind of thing happens, but what we want is what's a reasonable time for recovery? Are there issues along that line? So we'll be measuring those as well. And so again, those are going to be held for 10 years by us and monitored and measured on an ongoing basis in order to hold the service providers accountable for what they've promised. As you may or may not know, we have 15 pre-qualified providers. These are all the organizations that we're working with and that are approved to actually respond to our requests for proposals and work with us moving forward to address this issue. We've added to it over time. It started at 10, it's now 15. It includes big companies, small companies, organizations that include municipalities. Some are municipalities in conjunction with ISPs. So there's all kinds of organizations there. These people or these organizations have all been pre-qualified with us. So we wanted to make sure that each of them had the experience and the capacity to build, to design, build, install, and maintain a network over time, but also had the financial capacity and the human resources needed to do that. So that these people have all been vetted in that way. And then their individual proposals are vetted and scored by us before being recommended to the the Nova Scotia Internet Service Trust for approval of the dollars going to them. You will also notice that SpaceX, who if anybody was watching, successfully launched a rocket last night. They're one of our approved providers. You may have heard that they have some fairly successful projects going now in the technology of low Earth satellites. They are an approved provider. They have now been approved to be an internet service provider in Canada by the CRTC, and we've been in touch with them a number of times. They are interested in Canada and they are interested in Nova Scotia. So now we just have to wait to see how long it might take them to get into a position where they have enough satellites launched and in the air in order to actually provide service. But the reviews coming back are very good on lower satellite, and it may well come to bear potentially for some of the communities in Nova Scotia. Give you a bit of a review of where we've been just in terms of progress, so that you have a really good sense of what we've been doing over time. So you may remember that the first round of projects were announced in February of 2020. It seems like eons ago, but it is actually still this year. Those were round one projects, and they were in communities across Nova Scotia with 5 different service providers, and they identified 42,000 homes and businesses that they were going to reach through those projects. They started immediately. We also launched our second RFP immediately within a couple of days after that, looking for projects that would cover all of those that didn't get a project in the first round. And so that RFP closed in June. We did bid scoring and negotiations in June and July. And in August, even before we got to a point where we were in a position to announce, because the negotiations were ongoing, we already knew where the pockets of homes and businesses that remained uncovered after the second round of projects. We began work to see how we might reach those communities right away. So we began that in August. By August 30th, the acceleration funding that was identified from the Premier had been kicked in on our round one projects, and we were actually able to extend the network to connect 18,000 homes and businesses. So that would be 18,000 out of the 42,000 announced in February. Then on September 1st, we announced the second round of projects, which was an additional 32,000 homes and businesses. And again, those projects began right away, and design and engineering work is underway for those. Those were in communities again across Nova Scotia. We estimated when we began our work in August that there was around between 10 and 15, looks like it's more like 15,000 homes and businesses that remain uncovered in little pockets here and there around Nova Scotia. We knew that was going to happen. So we began immediately to figure out how do we actually reach those companies while all of our other 74,000 homes and businesses, the projects to reach those are underway. So what we did was we reached out to all of the service providers who have projects with us now approved and underway. And we asked each of them to see how they might extend the geographic scope of their existing projects to cover off more of those that remain unserved and underserved. So we've gotten all that information in, I think almost all that information in now. We've been reviewing it as it's been coming in. It's looking very good. And we expect that there should be an announcement on those project extensions within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Again, what that will mean is once we announce those, there will be yet a smaller percentage of homes and businesses that will remain uncovered, again in pockets across Nova Scotia, and we will continue to work to see how we might reach those. The likelihood is that the next step that we will take is to actually identify those clumps or groups of homes and businesses, and we will go direct to the ISPs that are pre-qualified with us and ask them what will it take to reach those. So we will go by 20 and 10s and 100 or a 50 or however many homes and businesses are there, and we'll go to whatever internet service provider is willing to actually reach out and provide service to those. So that work will be underway as soon as we get through the extension of the existing projects. I'm going to go through this coverage map, or it's not a coverage map, it's a progress map, but what it does is it shows you visually kind of where we started and where we are now. What we knew is that in May of 2019, when we issued our first RFP, we knew we were at around 70% covered with that minimum 50-10 target speed. What you'll see here is the purple areas will show you where those areas with high-speed internet existed. All of the white areas were areas identified that actually required service and were either unserved or underserved. And the areas in green with the trees indicate areas that have little or no demand. You'll see that there are little pockets of white in there. We do know where the small clusters of homes and businesses are, but in general, those are in the middle of Kejimkujik Park or in the middle of a wilderness area where there is no demand for internet. There may be a demand for cell service, but that's a different question altogether, and I'm happy to address that at the end, but not for internet service. So we've been concentrating our efforts at trying to actually turn those white sections purple. So I'll give you a sense of where we are after our September announcement. So after September, as Paige mentioned, we believe that once these projects are complete, we will be at 97% covered with a 50-10 minimum service, but much of that will be in excess of that. As you'll see, the areas in purple are the ones where we've extended projects to reach those homes and businesses. There's a couple of darker purple ones. Those are independent municipal projects that are taking place that are moving forward on their own. We're monitoring those, but we're in this instance, we're making an assumption that those ones are complete as well. And the areas that exist still that you can see in white are the areas that still require high-speed internet service. So those are the ones that we're trying to reduce right now. We're trying to actually get to those by extending the contracts of our current projects to try to reach as many of those as we can. Again, hoping to be in a position to announce that in the next few weeks. A little bit on timing, just to give people a sense of where we are. And my slides are going insane. Okay, so this is a bit of a timing slide, which gives you a sense of how we see this rolling out. So in May of 2019, as I mentioned, we believed we were at 70%. In August of 2020 is when I mentioned that the acceleration of those first round projects was complete with 18,000 homes and businesses having access to the network to provide high-speed internet. So that brought us to about 78%. The rest of the round one projects, most will be complete, actually the vast majority will be complete by March 2021. And in fact, many of those are being completed before that. And I'll take you through some of the information that's available on our website now to give you a better sense of that. So once we reach summer 2021, that's when we start to see the second round of projects coming online, as you'll see. And as I remind everyone, these kinds of projects are very front-end loaded, a lot of design engineering work, make-ready work, tree trimming, permits, all of those kinds of things go into it at the front end before you'll ever see anyone working in the community. It doesn't mean work isn't being done. It is started right away. They have very aggressive timeframes that we're challenging them to meet. So we see those starting to come online in the summer of 2021. So we'll see about 10 to 11,000 come on by summer 2021, another 10,000 by the end of 2021, and then all substantially complete in and around the summer of 2022. And you'll see we're not done yet. We don't know where we're going to get, but we're very confident that we can get higher than 95%, and our objective is to get to as close to 99 or 100% as we can. So we're continuing to work on that very diligently. I just want to give you a bit of an investment summary so you'll know where the money has been spent. As I said, the Nova Scotia Internet Funding Trust is where that money is held. We do not have the money, and nor do we make decisions on that. Our job is to actually run the procurement process, do the due diligence, score the projects, make the recommendation to the trust. The trust makes a decision as to whether to fund or not, and then it comes back to us, and we see it through installation and then into service delivery, as I mentioned. So it started with 193 million in the trust that the province put there in 2018. Off the bat, there were a number of Connect to Innovate federal programs that have been announced way back in 2016, 2017, that had identified provincial funds. It made sense for those funds to come from the Internet Funding Trust. All of those projects had been qualified and by the federal government through their program. We took another look at them from a due diligence perspective, and that was approved by the trust, and about $500,000 of the trust went to that. The phase one projects that were announced in February of this year, $51 million from the trust was committed to that, and that is inclusive of the acceleration funds that were announced in March by the Premier. We were able to spend about 5.6 of that out of the 15. Accelerating is not always about money. Sometimes it's just a pure capacity question. And so we were able to invest 5.6 million in accelerating to reach those 18,000. Phase two projects were announced 1st of September. That's $60 million from the trust that was required. And so once you do the math, we've got a remaining of about a little over $82 million in the trust. That's what we're using to extend the contracts of existing projects, and also to look at those that remain unserved and underserved, so that we can continue to push further and reach further. Really important to note that we've leveraged funding along the way, so that we're trying to make that funding trust go as far as we can. We've leveraged 18 million from other public sector investment, and in some of those cases, it was most of those cases it was municipalities who had money that was set aside, and they wanted to contribute to the projects. It was not required. It didn't put any municipalities above any others, or it didn't put those that did not have funding in a less beneficial position. It just happened to be that some of those folks had money to put in, which is great. And $102 million has been leveraged by the private sector. And so by that, what I mean is every project that's approved, the internet service providers are investing in those projects as well. Mostly, almost as much as what is being contributed from the funding trust. So they've got skin in the game, let's just say. So I'm going to go through a few common public questions that we get, which and happy to share this PowerPoint as well if it's helpful. So lots of folks will ask us, especially on the projects that just got announced in September, is my home or my business included? And the answer to that is we don't know yet. And the reason why we don't know is not because we're hiding the information, we don't have it. So the street and address level information is not available yet. Once we approve a project, there is a lot more design and engineering work that's needed by the ISP in community, looking at routes and looking at availability, and whether or not they're able to extend the network in the way that they anticipated at a proposal stage. Once that's done and approved, they will complete coverage maps, and they will develop estimated completion dates for each of those smaller areas, so smaller projects, and those will be posted on our site. They're also shared with the municipalities, and some of those municipalities are also posting them on site, so they're available for viewing. And as soon as they're available, they'll be there. For most of, I would say the vast majority of round one projects, if you go in and look on our website, they already have coverage maps and estimated completion dates. So that is what will happen for the second round ones. And also once we announce projects extensions for those ones as well. Lots of questions from folks that didn't see a project in their area, very, very concerned they've been left behind. Our message is we're not done. We're still working on it, and we are actively working to find solutions. We're confident that we will for most, and we know where the remaining pockets are. So that's what we're focused on trying to address right now. Couple more public questions from the public that we get. A lot on price and service cost affordability. People are concerned about the cost or the price of the service, and so we were also concerned about that going in, and we wanted to make sure that we managed that in the best possible way. So in our service level agreements that I discussed earlier, we have language in those agreements that that ensures that there is cost competitiveness, and so what that means is comparable services must be comparable prices, no matter what the location is. So if I'm in Halifax and I get a 5 to the home, and somebody else is in East Rawdon and gets a fiber to the home, and I don't have any more bells and whistles and they don't either, the cost should be the same. So we should be paying the same price. That is the tenet for this service level agreement, and we will be monitoring that over time, and we'll be doing annual audits of that as well. Also, a lot of concern around whether or not people in some of the rural areas will receive an inferior service, and we would go back to all projects that we put forward for approval must meet or exceed minimum standards. So they're all going to at least deliver a 50-10, and if they deliver a 25-5, they've got to show how they can get to a 50-10 within probably at this point 3 years. The majority of the projects that have been approved for funding deliver much higher speeds than that. And we really, again, are not technology focused. We're focused on outcome. And we just, our objective is to get high quality, reliable internet and to establish that at least a minimum baseline across the province, as far into the province as we can get, reaching as many Nova Scotians as we can. So I wanted to call attention to our website as well, because we've done a lot of work on our website in order to actually make it much more consumer friendly. So once you go into our website, www.developns.ca, and hit internet, or you can go direct there by putting this URL in your computer, you will see a page come up, and on all the pages you will see a search function at the top. And so once you put your community name in there, it will actually pop up and it will show you if there is a project approved in your community. It will show you that, and it will tell you the provider, it will tell you what technology, it will tell you the status, and it will tell you the anticipated completion date if known at this point. And if they're ready, it will show you the coverage maps as well. So again, trying to do as much as possible to provide that information as transparently as possible might also be a good tool for you folks as you're looking at locations and you're looking at homes, either homes that your clients are looking to buy or homes that your clients are looking to sell. And this will also provide a bit of a sense of if there's internet service there, and also when internet service might be anticipated to arrive. So I'd encourage you to use that tool as much as you can. Whoops. Also interesting to note, and this is something that you'll see the province talk about quite a bit, in that the initiative here in terms of internet for Nova Scotia is enabling lots of things across the province. It's quality of life. It's it's progress for business. It's allowing folks to home educate their children and to access services which are more and more becoming online services. And so we see that, and we know the urgency. It's also really interesting to note that the population in Nova Scotia has been growing steadily since 2015, which is a good thing. And if anybody knows anything, we need people, and we need people of a certain age. So those people that are coming to 0.24% growth. So, we estimate that once we get to the end of 2022 and the completion of those first and second round projects, we will be among the first Canadian provinces to reach more than 95% coverage. And that's great. we won't be there for long, is my estimation, because lots of other people, and you will have seen all of the announcements around the federal broadband programs as well. Everybody else is trying to crack this nut too, but that's a good thing. And it's nice to know that maybe, we might be a couple of steps ahead at least at this point. But, in this emerging work from anywhere world, which we're in right now, and more so now because of COVID, the project that we're undertaking really enhances what we believe to be an already very strong Nova Scotia value proposition as a wonderful place to live and work. And we see that Nova Scotia's star is rising based on the cost of living, based on the size of our province, and a number of other livability factors. And we see that internet connectivity will really continue to enable that growth over time. So I'm happy to stop talking and take questions.
Hi, Deborah. We do have a couple questions from folks that have been coming up in the chat, so I will just go through them here. So Adam Henniger asks, for someone who is on high-speed internet in a rural area that is actually getting less than 1 megabyte download speed, is there a mechanism to complain?
So my question back would be, what speed was sold to you? So what speed are you supposed to be getting? Or what is the maximum speed that you could get on the service that you're in?
Okay, so we'll wait for Adam to reply to that, and we'll ask another one here while we wait. Susan Green is wondering why Develop Nova Scotia is not participating in the project with the municipality of Pictou County.
So we've actually reached out to Pictou County and are meeting with them actually today to discuss their project. But there is a background on that. They submitted a proposal to our first round of projects, and we negotiated with them for about 3 months. Through that negotiations, the financial numbers in their proposal changed a number of times. And once we came to the final conclusion on that, the numbers had changed such that their bid was no longer the top value bid in that region. And so we were not able to actually provide, so we were not able to advance that project further. It's just it is totally against procurement rules, and something that wasn't in the best interests of Nova Scotia. And so what we did was we could have proceeded with another project at that time. We were asked not to. Pictou County suggested that they were going to move forward without our funding, and we invited them to do so. And we said, we are here. If at any point down the road your county ends up being in a position where there are still unserved and underserved people, we will fold those people back into our initiative, and we'll move forward from there. And so, in fact, we're actually meeting today to have an update on their project, and we look forward to that, and we look forward to working in whatever way is necessary moving forward to ensure that those in Pictou County have access to the similar services.
Great, thank you. So Adam has responded, and he has said, oops, I've lost my chat box here. Adam says that it is supposed to be Bell Alliant high speed, 100 megabytes per second, but is actually only 1.56 megabytes per second.
It's supposed to be 100. Woo, okay. All right, so that's weird. That does, so if you have, if you're in an area where the service is supposed to be in excess of 50 or a 50, you are not deemed to be underserved or unserved, because you do have access to the technology, but it doesn't seem to be delivering it to you. So what I would recommend is that you first follow up with Bell and have that conversation. I'm sure you already have, and if you have, that's fine. So you can skip that. And then your next stop is the CRTC. And if you go onto the CRTC's website, you will see that they are working on what they're calling an internet code for Canada. Because of the funds that are being invested across Canada in improving broadband. They recognize that there has been an issue in terms of the services being provided or promised and then provided. And so what they've done is they've started to build a code. And you will see likely very soon that they will actually start measuring the same things that we're measuring in our service level agreements, but doing it Canada-wide. If you think about the money that's going to be invested from a federal perspective, they're going to want to make sure that that's delivering what is being promised. And so, again, the step for you would be to go to the regulator and have discussions and complain to the regulator, because they should be delivering something that they're not.
Great, thank you. As a follow-up to your answer on Susan's question, we have another question that says, is there any data to suggest that independent municipal internet is better financially?
I don't have access to that data. What I do know is, as in everything, if you look, you will find success stories, stories about success stories. And if you look, you will find lots of stories about those that tried and ended up selling them back to telecom service providers. Again, that's one of those questions where you can find data on both sides. We've been open to any type of ISP or partnership or municipality. Our process was open to municipalities, internet service providers, community groups, as long as they registered as an internet service provider, or to folks coming together in consortiums and partnerships, as long as they were able to actually prove that they had the requirements on a pre-qualification perspective, and then their bids have to be their proposals have to be measured up against all the other proposals that we receive. And our job is to make sure that Nova Scotians get the best value.
Great. So I do have another question here. Someone is wondering how many local providers Develop Nova Scotia is working with.
How many local providers? So we're working right now with, Cross Country. We're working with Mainland Telecom. We're working with Seaside. Trying to think. Those would be the primary local. Some people would say ExploreNet started regionally. Some people would say it's now been bought internationally. So you can argue whatever you want about that. ExploreNet's another one of our partners. And then Bell Canada is our other partner.
Great. And I think you had already answered this one, but we'll ask it as well. Does the search on the Develop Nova Scotia website, it doesn't work for specific addresses yet, correct?
And it will not.
And it will not.
It will not. It will only work by community, and then we will let the coverage maps go from there. And the reason being, and I think I'm hoping no one will argue, but the investment required in order to actually develop that kind of a database would mean we'd need an entire team of people who were doing mapping and stuff, and we don't have that. We don't have that capacity, and frankly, we would prefer our resources be at rolling out projects and getting projects approved to reach as many Nova Scotians as we can. And so, if the internet service providers want to provide that level of detail, they're welcome to do that, and in some cases they do. I know ExploreNet does.
Great. And they're also wondering if on the map, or if you have any information to show how many service providers are in this specific area.
You mean with the projects we have, or just in general?
You know what? I'm not sure, Lorna, if you could just let us know, just kind of expand on that in the chat for us.
Yeah, I mean, I can take a guess and say, we will identify if we have projects by different providers in a certain area, and that will be identified on the website. In terms of mapping the technology that exists in Nova Scotia through a network, like mapping the network, that's all commercially sensitive information, and we're not in a position to share that. If the service providers want to share that, that's up to them, but that is not something that we are in a position to share.
Okay. Damien is asking, can we fairly anticipate that service costs will increase?
Well, I mean, I think as much as you would consider that service costs on everything will increase over time, I do know that I've spoken with folks who have received, new service through this initiative and ended up saving hundreds of dollars based on what they were paying before. So it's all relative, right? If you've never had access to internet, high-speed internet, at speeds that allow you to do a whole bunch of things that you've wanted to do, then what you're going to end up spending might be more than you would normally spend, but you should be getting the value on the other side for that. And over time, all of the internet service providers, for the most part, they're all, private sector organizations trying to survive and be able to invest back into their networks. So, our focus is on cost competitiveness, as opposed to, trying to hold prices at a certain level. And the reason why we didn't do set prices is because it's the consumer who actually loses out in the end on that. We've seen that firsthand in other people that have done that. They set prices on service, and then a year and a half down the road, there's a new technology that comes online. The company is able to provide better speeds, better bells and whistles for less cost. And the folks that are in that contract are stuck. They're stuck at that set price, and they don't get to take advantage of improvements in technology. So that really didn't work in the way in which the originators wanted that to work. So we went away from that option really fast. We wanted to make sure that we were providing competitiveness, no matter whether you're in an urban or a rural setting.
Great, thank you. We have a question from one of our friends in beautiful Cape Breton. On the projected to be completed summer 2022 map, it appears to show that the Canso Causeway Port Hawkesbury area will not have high-speed service. Can you comment on that?
So if that was the progress map that I showed in the purple and the white, so if there is still a white area, then those are the areas that we're looking at to address right now. And so, as I said, we hope to be in a position to announce further contract extensions within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we're working on it.
Great. I have a couple more. They keep coming in.
That's okay.
So someone has asked, we hear a lot about the development of this project. Do customers absorb the cost of expansion?
No. Nope. So the cost of expansion, as I said, is being funded in a number of different ways. One, there are funds that are coming from the Nova Scotia Internet Funding Trust, which is approved by the trust, and then we monitor the installation. Then each of the internet service providers is investing in those networks. So they're investing, and in some cases, municipalities are investing as well. So the customers shouldn't be covering those costs. And we've said, prices have to be comparable. So I would say, if we were extending that out and then you ended up paying 3 times as much for your service, that could be an argument you can make, but that won't be happening because that wouldn't line up with our service level agreements.
Great. Someone else has asked, do you provide any small business development assistance in this field? So does Develop Nova Scotia, if anyone's trying to start or expand their small business to be an internet service provider, do you assist with that?
No, we do not. But there's lots of organizations out there that do. So lots of our sister crowns through Innovacor or NSBI or others, even Department of Business and other organizations are looking at how they can help small businesses to grow. And so there's opportunity that way. But that's not our lane. Our lane is making sure that the access and the infrastructure is extended as far as we can get it.
Great. And we just have one more question. It's actually not on internet. It's on kind of the overarching mission of Develop Nova Scotia. And someone is wondering, is it possible to work with communities seeking access to develop their own waterfronts?
Yes, it is. And we have, we have a number of communities that we're working with currently on things like that. The selection of those communities has been largely driven by the strategy that we've put together around marine visitation and working waterfronts and marine supply chain. And so we have identified a number of different locations where a lack of infrastructure is hurting the ability for visiting vessels and visiting boaters to do a really good kind of itinerary around the province. And so those ones are kind of first up on our priority, but over time we'll be looking at other communities, and we get phone calls and have had discussions with many different communities to look at what is it that our expertise could help those communities to achieve from a waterfront perspective. And we're always open to those conversations on a go-forward basis. And we would just invite folks to give us a call and let us know that there might be something that they might like to chat about. And we're happy to do that.
Great, thank you. So that was the last of our questions. So
Awesome.
Deborah, I wanted to thank you so much for joining us today. As you can tell, this is a hot topic for realtors and folks across the province, and we always appreciate you coming to spend time with us and tell us about what's going on. We're going to post this recording for everyone that wasn't able to make the call onto our YouTube channel, and we'll share that with members, and we'll share it with you at Develop Nova Scotia as well. And we will see everyone tomorrow for our second session at 2 p.m. We're having our diversity in real estate panel. So thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you everyone for joining us, and everybody, I hope you have a great day.